Okay, I think we can get started. It looks like the majority of folks have tuned in this morning. So thank you so much for spending a little bit of your morning with us today. I'm Dr. Jason Bolton. I'm the Vice President of Community Partnerships and Admissions for the Help Group. Obviously today, as we're talking about our schools and getting you familiar with them, I'm wearing the hat of Vice President of Admissions mostly today. Um, the purpose of today is really to give you an overview of what you do and give you sort of a taste of what you do, at what we do, and so that you will, be able to know how to access more information about us, assuming that you have interest, which I'm sure you will. I have always been told in public speaking courses that you should tell your audience what you're going to talk about before you do. So this is the agenda for today. I'm going to tell you in a second a little bit of how I come to this work, a little bit about me and the importance of the work we do and how has it affected me personally. Then I'm going to talk about what non-public schools are, and then how you get to come here, how you're funded, how you apply. I will then give you an overview of our schools and our campuses, and I am definitely here to take questions. So this webcast goes to 11 o'clock, and we will definitely reserve the end of that time for you guys to ask questions. The way to do that is through the chat. So I gave you a little good morning chat when we first signed on. I see someone has returned that as well. But if you have questions or when you have questions along the line, please use the chat to put that in. I might answer something that I see come across in the moment, but most likely I will hold until the Q&A section to sort of scroll through and look at the questions. You guys also submitted questions during the registration process, which I have reviewed and have made sure that I have covered the majority of those concerns or questions in the presentation. But again, if I don't, or if I don't do it adequately, don't be shy to bring those up in the chat. Okay, so that's the agenda for today. Also, we will run across the bottom of the screen throughout reminders that you can use the chat, and also different ways in which you can contact us here at the Help Group. Okay, so the first thing that I like to do is to talk a little bit about how I come to this work and the experience that I bring. I'm a father myself. I'm a clinical psychologist by training and have worked at the Help Group for 21 years. But I'm a father myself, and I have 15-year-old triplet daughters. I had already been working, let's do the math. I'd already been working at the Help Group about 6 years when my daughters were born. As is sometimes the case with multiple births, they were born early and had early developmental delays. I was able to get regional center services for all three of them. You should have seen our house. It was sort of like a preschool. There were so many speech and OT providers coming for each of the three girls at any given time that we had a little three-person preschool in our house for a couple of years. One of my daughters, they all benefited from that service tremendously. And one of my daughters right before the age of 3, was diagnosed with autism. So here I am, a professional working in an agency that specializes in working with kids with autism. I would have said at that point that I understood the parent perspective very well, and I was about to get a real dose in what that really was like when you were seeking to provide the services that you knew that your child needed. I always say that I'm sort of like the guy, if you guys are old enough to remember the commercial for the guy that did the Hair Club for Men commercial, where he says, I'm not only the owner, I'm a client. well, I'm certainly not the owner of the help group, but I was a client and a consumer of our services because I brought my daughter to our young learners preschool for a year and a half. And then she made significant gains during that year and a half. And as we had planned from the beginning, she then joined her sisters in the tail end of their second year of preschool, and has been with them alongside them in their educational journey ever since. And they are now 10th graders, and doing very well, as benefiting from early intervention with the regional center and non-public school remediation and work here at the help group. So when I speak to you guys today, particularly at this stage in the game where you are looking for services and trying to find that best fit for your child, know that I am talking about that not only from a professional lens, but also from a personal one, in which I was doing a lot of the work that you're doing today too, including looking at district operated schools, looking at other kinds of private options, and looking at non-public schools like ours. I promise you, I would have not put my child in our preschool had I not thought that it was the best option for her. And it was. So that's the lens, that's the perspective that I bring to this work. And I hope that you appreciate that as you listen to what we have to offer. So let's start by just talking about the help group in general and how we have decided to position ourselves with the schools that we operate. So we have long decided that the best way to work with kids who need significant early education intervention or remediation throughout their educational career is to educate kids with like challenges and like strengths together. So we have a range of schools to do that, and we have designed those schools for kids with common experiences. There is certainly a renewed push in the education world right now for inclusive settings. A non-public school like ours, all the ones that we operate, certainly wouldn't meet the definition of an inclusive setting. However, what we feel we do best is for kids who have not done well in those settings, for kids who the district has tried to provide an appropriate placement for, but the kids have still struggled. We provide a place where one of two things can happen. We can work on that skill development and remediate and teach school readiness and get kids ready to return to a less restrictive environment like my daughter did. Or we become the option that really facilitates your child being able to matriculate through school and end up graduating from high school with a diploma or with a certificate of completion, whichever is appropriate for your child. So that's how we've done it. That's why you will hear me talk about 13 non-public schools that we operate. It's not to put them in all kinds of different geographic areas. It's in order to provide specialized and intensive services to children who have similar strengths and similar needs. Okay. So lots of times people come to meetings like this. There's people who know pretty much well what a non-public school is and know what the range of options are that are available to parents. And there's others who are really starting this process and don't even really know what this strange word non-public school is. I'm from Oklahoma. There was no such thing as a non-public school. That word, when I first moved here, that word seemed like a very odd word to me. So let me just start out very basically with what is a non-public school. So by definition, we're a private school. We file a private school affidavit with the California Department of Education every year for all of our schools, which defines us as a private school. How we differ from a private school is that we contract with local education authorities, basically school districts and charter schools who are acting as school districts, to provide special education services to their students. So we ended the year last year with just over 1,100 students, and 95% of those students were funded by their school district. I'm going to talk more about what that means, funded by their school district to attend our schools. So in a way, while we are a private school and we are in total control of our operations and the choices that we make, we also are partners with the school district to extend the services that they have to their children. And when your children get funded to come to one of our schools, they remain a student of the district that places them here with us. Okay, that's very important to know. You're not opting out of special education services within that district. You remain a student of the district who is funding you. That means that when you have IEPs and you're here with us and you have your yearly IEP, that the school district is there. They are part of that team. They remain part of that team. They remain part of the discussion about how your child is doing, how are they progressing, what services are necessary for them. Whether or not it's time to start thinking about transitioning to another school. They remain part of that team, as do you, and as do our teachers, our providers, our administrators. Everyone's sitting at the table with that for that IEP. Services that are available when you choose to come to a non-public school are not limited. So if your child has speech or OT and continues to need it when they come to us, we have a speech department. We have an occupational therapy department. So we continue to provide those services. We provide counseling services. We provide ERICS, which is called Educationally Related Intensive Counseling Services. All of those services we provide when your child comes to one of our schools. Another thing is about 99.5% of students who are funded by their school district to attend one of our schools are entitled to door-to-door transportation. So I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute about where our schools are located in the 4 different campuses. We have kids coming from pretty far distances to some of our schools because we are their best option. And that transportation is provided as part of their rights accorded to them through their IEP. I know we're covering a lot of ground here. And again, some of you know some of this and some of you don't. So I want to make sure that I do that. But don't forget to use the chat if you have specific questions, okay? Because there's a lot to talk about and a lot of ground to cover. So let's talk about how funding works. Well, back up just one bit, because you did notice that I said 95% of our students are funded by their school districts to attend our schools. That leaves 5% that I didn't talk about. So as a school who files a private school affidavit with the CDE, we are able to also accept students on a private pay basis, as would any private school. So we do have a number of kids doing the math. 1,100, 5%, what were your little less than 60 kids whose parents do pay privately to attend school here, so that their school districts are not a part of that placement. It's just a contract between us and the family to provide their special education for their kids. But let's now talk about those 95% who are funded. So for for a child to be referred to us and funded by their school district to attend here, there has to be an agreement among the IEP team that a non-public school is the least restrictive and most appropriate environment for your student at that time. So that means at some point, if you believe that a non-public school like ours is the appropriate placement, you have to bring that up to your school district in an IEP setting. And, you know, that discussion will take place in that IEP about where the appropriate placement is. Sometimes the IEP team is in agreement. And right there at the IEP, they say, we believe a non-public school is the appropriate choice for this student. And they put out for referrals, they put referrals out to you and allow you to look at a certain number of non-public schools to see what's the best fit. So, some districts do it differently than others, but for the most part, they typically give you a couple of options. And say, hey, go look at these schools that the help group operates, and maybe this one, and maybe this one that we don't operate. And you get to make that choice. If you truly believe that a non-public school is what your child needs, and the IEP team agrees with you, and that's what happens, that's the result of that IEP, that's really the best case scenario, because you've made your case, everyone agrees, and they're proceeding in that process and trying to find that best fit for your child. If the IEP team doesn't agree and you continue to believe that it is what your child needs, then you may disagree with that IEP. And you know, you get this before every IEP, you get a pamphlet that tells you about your rights, and all of this is in there. So I'm not telling you anything that the districts aren't already telling you in writing, but just to reiterate that when you don't agree with an IEP, you can always disagree with those pieces of the IEP that you don't agree with. And that doesn't mean you don't have to sign the IEP. You can sign the IEP and say, but I disagree with this section, and this section. And in this case, you would say, I'm disagreeing with placement. And when that happens, you initiate due process and you start mediating and communicating with the district about what you need. And hopefully through that process, you can obtain funding to a non-public school. So that can get complex, and sometimes you might need support from families who have gone through it, from advocates to help you navigate that process. But like I said, we ended the year last year with about 1,100 students, and 95% of them are funded by their school districts. So districts are definitely still doing that. Let's get to how do you apply to one of our schools. So I mentioned that districts will refer, but you can also get ahead of the game if you'd like. If you want to apply to our schools, even if you haven't been referred yet, you can do that. On our website at www.thehelpgroup.org, there is a section on admissions. And when you go to that section of the website, there is a link to an online application. It is through a website called PowerSchool. So to get to that application, you actually have to do a very brief registration for an account in PowerSchool. I think it only requires that you put in an email address and a password, and then you're able to directly make the application online to any one of our schools. Once you've done that, it comes directly to our admissions office, and our admissions office will call you to set up an interview. So we interview all of our potential enrollees. Typically, that interview is done with an administrator of the school in which you're applying to. That interview usually lasts about an hour or so and includes both your student and you, maybe together for a little bit, maybe just with the student for a little bit. We have transitioned to doing most of those interviews in person these days. But if for some reason it's hard to schedule, or if you still prefer to do virtual appointments, we are flexible enough that we can do that as well. The interviewer will also ask you for a couple of collateral contacts. So professionals who know your child well. As we advance into the year, we highly prefer that one of those contacts be the child's current teacher. And then maybe the next is their speech therapist, their OT, or if you have outside services outside of school, if you have outside services, counseling or private speech or OT, it could be someone like that as your second contact. And if you don't think a teacher is going to be the best person for us to talk to, it's fine to supplement or replace that with a second person as well. And we will talk about why that choice was made and how that might affect how we can evaluate appropriateness with one of our schools. So after that interview is done, the interviewer presents your child to our admissions committee. Our admissions committee meets twice a week, 52 weeks out of the year. Obviously meeting that frequently suggests that we have rolling admissions. So we will enroll students anytime in the year, including very late in the year. If we think that makes sense to help your child transition to summer school or ESY, if it makes sense to enroll in the last week of the year, we will. So you don't need to feel limited by those traditional typical enrollment times like the beginning of the year or the beginning of the semester. We will look at those. We will look at admitting at all times. The main function of the interview process is to make sure that we get a good fit with our school. And, I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to talk more in depth here about our schools, but we do offer a wide range of schools that specialize in a wide range of student presentations. So you also don't need to feel pressure during the application process that you're an expert in all of our schools and that you better apply to the right one. Because the way we operate is, let's say you apply to our Village Glen school and we go through the interview process. Let's say we don't think it's a right fit for Village Glen. We don't just then say, sorry, it's a bad fit, good luck. We talk about what other schools we might find more appropriate, and we continue to facilitate that interview process with you so that we can find the best match within our systems of schools. So while it's great to know as much as you can about our schools and to apply to the one that you think is the best for your child, don't feel so pressured that you wait to apply because you're not sure which one it is the best one. We will help you figure that out once you begin engaging with us. That leads down to this strange phrase here at the bottom of this slide that says, in quotes, acceptable but not yet accepted. So I mentioned that you may want to get ahead of the game and go ahead and apply and look at our schools before you are referred by a school district. Remember, it's fine to wait. Also, if you wait for a the referral process to happen, that is fine too. It doesn't put you behind or anything like that. But if you choose to get out in front and start looking at schools, and you also know that you're not going to be able to pay privately, We will still do an evaluation. We will still receive your application. We will still set up an interview with our administrator. We will still call your collateral contacts, as I have just talked about, and we will still determine whether we have a good fit with our school or which school is the best fit. Assuming we find a school that is a good fit, then we will give you a letter that says that your child is acceptable, but not yet accepted. And what that means is the admission, the enrollment, is pending funding from your school district. So you can say to your school district, look, I went to the help group, I looked at Sunrise School, and they agreed that Sunrise would be a good fit for my child. Now, remember, at that time, we're not part of the IEP team. So our decision that your child is a good fit, at that point, it only means that your child would do well there. What we, not being a part of the IEP team, what we can't evaluate at that time is it the least restrictive environment where your child would do well? We just know that your child would do well. So it remains up to the IEP team. They can take that letter and go, yeah, the help group might think that he would do well at Sunrise, but we have this program and this program and this program that we also think that he would do well in, and it's the least restrictive environment, and we should try that first. So that's why our letter says acceptable but not yet accepted, because we would reserve our full acceptance until when the IEP team, or if the IEP team finds your child in need of a non-public school as the least restrictive and appropriate environment. Okay, so again, that was a lot. I covered funding. I covered how do we apply. I covered that we will look at your child before or after referral. It doesn't matter. Well, let me just say one more thing about the interview process before we move on to the schools in general. There are several different results that could come from our evaluation and the presentation to the admissions committee. Best result is you applied to a school, we find it to be the right school, and we agree to enroll to that school. Another option would be you applied to a school, we think we have another school that's a better fit, we would let you know that we think this other school is a better fit. Another option is we still aren't sure. So we may ask for additional collateral information. We may ask for, do you have some more testing, or do you have some more records that are, particularly if they're contemporaneous, that might help us get a better feel for what might be an appropriate placement. Or we might invite your child to come do a quick visit in one of our schools. It might be, from 9 to 12, or it might be from 1 to 3, where they attend our classes, and we're able to get a little bit better feel, a little bit more hands-on knowledge of whether we have a good match. So if that were to happen, then sort of the admissions would be on hold. We would let that occur. It would come back to our committee, and then we would make that decision. And then lastly, the decision that we don't want to make is that we could say that we don't have a good fit for any of our schools, or that there are provisions in the IEP that our school can't provide. And if that happens, legally, we can't accept a child into our program. So one of the reasons that we have created so many schools is to really be able to serve every child that comes to us. So our motivation is definitely to find a place for your child. But there are times in which we, even given that effort to create all of these schools, there are sometimes times when we aren't able to find a good fit. Okay. Again, please don't hesitate to put any questions in the chat, and I'm about to start talking about the different schools. Quickly, we're just going to go over where our schools are located, and these slides will go by pretty quickly. Currently, we have 14 schools on 4 campuses. Go ahead and advance that. In Sherman Oaks, where go ahead, Aldo. In Sherman Oaks, where I'm located, where a lot of our executive offices are located, we have our Young Learners School, our Sunrise School, our Bridgeport School. The older program for those same students is our vocational center, and then we also have Village Glen. So that's what's in Sherman Oaks. And then in Culver City, a lot of those same schools are replicated. So you'll see some of those same names: Young Learners, Sunrise, Bridgeport, also a vocational center under Bridgeport, Village Glen. And then also in Culver City, we have Summit View West and we have Westview. And again, I'm going to talk about these in general. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a foreshadowing of what's to come. And then in Valley Glen, which is just up the street from us here in Sherman Oaks, is also our Summit View school and our STEM Cubed Academy school. And then lastly, in Van Nuys is our school called North Hills Prep. And as well in Van Nuys, we do have a residential program, residential treatment program for adolescents that is also housed on that campus. Okay, so let's talk about all of these schools. And obviously, some of these are going to apply to you and some of them aren't. But I think hearing the distinction among the schools even helps you understand a little bit about where you might want to start your process with us. Just have to reiterate again, though, that if you don't quite get it right, it's okay. We will help you refine your search with us. Let's start with Young Learners. That's the program that I talked about my daughter attending back in 2010 through 2011. And it's the easy one. It's our preschool. We have extended it into kindergarten as well a couple of years ago. So if your child were to come when they are 3 years old, they would have their 3-year and your 3-year-old year, their 4-year-old year, and they could also stay for kindergarten if that was necessary. I say it's the easy one because it is our only preschool. So it really, at that age, it's much harder to determine what the eventual cognitive level will be, what the eventual placement within our system might be. And so we evaluate that during Young Learners, and also, really focus on social skills development, life skills development. Some of the students and Young Learners it's where my daughter learned to be potty trained. We have this amazing bathroom that has these little bitty toilets and little bitty sinks. That was an amazing process for me, is to watch her learn that skill while she was here. Even though we were working with her at home significantly, it was really at Young Learners where she developed that independence. And so that's what makes it the easy decision, is that if you have a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, that Young Learners will be the right place to start looking for us. Again, the focus really in Young Learners is to develop those age-appropriate independence to the best possible. There's speech and OT that are very much integrated into the program, and kids are really working on that school readiness for kindergarten. Again, I'm not going to cover everything in this. There's plenty more to know about Young Learners, as there will be as I touch on the rest of these schools. But I just want to really use this time to give you an introduction to the schools so that you know how to follow up from here. So let's move on to Village Glen. In the earlier slides, you noticed that Village Glen is available in Sherman Oaks, but also in Culver City. They are 2 separately certified schools, but but really function sort of as the same school on two different campuses. Village Glen serves kids kindergarten through 12th grade. Kids who graduate from Village Glen graduate with a diploma. They meet all the A through G requirements that LAUSD requires, as well as many other school districts, and are also required for entrance into Cal State and the UC system. So when they graduate from Village Glen, they have met all of those requirements. Village Glen really focuses on social skills development. Before the latest version of the DSM-5 was out, I would be saying in meetings like this that Village Glen was designed for kids with Asperger's disorder. That term, as you know, is not used anymore. So really, most of our kids have a diagnosis of autism, but are around grade level in most of their academics. Now, sure, a kid may be strong in math and weaker in reading, or vice versa. And any kid may be like that. So that's understandable, and that student still would be quite appropriate for Village Glen. Again, we're working on social skills, we're working on academics together. And again, all of a range of services are available for our kids at Village Glen. So again, if you're thinking about it, the school was really designed for kids who have autism or have other social communication disorders, social communication challenges, who are around grade level, and if they were to stay with us that long, would be eligible to graduate from high school and attend college or a community college or some type of continuing secondary education. Although I'm going to go to Bridgeport now. I think Sunrise is on the list next, but I'm going to go to Bridgeport now. So well done, Aldo. So Bridgeport is also kindergarten through 12th grade. I'm going to also talk about, next after this, I'm going to talk about how we can extend Bridgeport's programming beyond 12th grade all the way to the age of 22. But Bridgeport is for kids also who may be on the autism spectrum or have other social and communication challenges, who are on the alternate curriculum. So if they stay through us through 12th grade or even through 22, then they will leave us with their certificate of completion rather than a high school diploma. This is all decided by an IEP team. Usually students who come and enroll in Bridgeport are already designated that way on the alternate curriculum before they attend, before they enroll. These students are able to benefit from grade level academics with modifications. Modifications meaning things like instead of reading a full novel, they might read a smaller condensed version of that novel, that same novel with that same content. But that's just an example of what a modification would be. So they're able to access their curriculum with modifications, while we are also doing a lot of work on independence training, learning to be able to be ready to enter the workforce, not being on the gen ed curriculum and working towards those A through G allows us a lot of flexibility to start developing work skills that are going to benefit these students as they either leave us in 12th grade or stay with us from 18 to 22. Okay, again, starts at kindergarten and goes all the way through the age of 22. Once your child is beyond typical graduation age and they're at Bridgeport, they may go to our Bridgeport vocational program. And that program, as I said, is from 18 to 22 and very aggressively targets work readiness skills. So there's a number of businesses on campus that the students participate in. If you walk into our lobby, or the first time you do walk into our lobby when you come to interview, once you get to the back of the lobby to the left, you'll see Lulu's Cafe, and Lulu's Cafe serves sandwiches and coffee and things like that. And there's a picture of some of our students working in Lulu's Cafe, where they're learning a lot of different skills about how to be employed. And then we also have partnerships out in the community with businesses like Petco, Sharky's, and many others, where our students are placed and they actually are employed during the school day to learn those skills to help them enter the workforce once they leave us at 22. Again, both of those programs, Bridgeport and the Voc Center, are available in Sherman Oaks and also in Culver City. And then let's talk about Sunrise. Sunrise is also Bridgeport and Culver City. It is a kindergarten through age 22 program. The reason I keep saying 22 is that when your child is in special education, they have a right to special education from kindergarten through the age of 22, so long as they haven't graduated with a diploma along the way. So your child does have a right to those services. Our Sunrise program is for kids who are more significantly affected cognitively by their disability. So they might have autism, they might have Down syndrome, they might have Angelman syndrome. They're really experiencing needs that it's important that we start really working on those independent skills. So a huge focus of the program is on developing independence along the way. Again, kindergarten through age 22. And as students get older, of course, the goals for those independents start matching the developmental need for those students. That, again, is in Sherman Oaks and in Culver City, the Sunrise program. I mentioned earlier Young Learners Preschool goes all the way to kindergarten, and you'll notice that I'm also talking about these schools including kindergarten. So that is a decision that would be made at any given time. Would it make sense for that child to stay in Young Learners for that kindergarten year, or does it make sense for us to transition them into kindergarten in the separate schools that we operate as well? Just wanted to clarify that at that time. Okay, so wow, time flies when I start talking about our schools. All right, so let's talk about STEM Cubed Academy. STEM Cubed Academy is our newest school, but it's been around now several years. It is in Valley Glen, which is a few miles up the road from us here in Sherman Oaks. STEM Cubed Academy was designed for students, again, with social and communicative challenges, but who also are academically superior and have an interest in science, technology, engineering, and math. So it's really all three of those things. They have the social communicative challenges. They do very well academically, at least at grade level and beyond, or at least beyond in certain areas and at grade level in others. And they really are digging science, technology, engineering, and math. It's a very exciting program. If you come see it, you will be blown away by the Makers Lab on the first floor, where kids have access to so many different type of materials in order to really look at engineering projects, robotics projects, and pique their academic interest in those areas that they're already interested in. So we're very proud of that program and welcome you to come visit it at any time. All right, our Summit View program, which is in, or Summit View School, which is in Valley Glen next to STEM Cubed Academy and also in Culver City, is designed for kids who have a specific learning disability. So they might have dyslexia, they might have dyscalculia. We conceptualize attention deficit hyperactivity disorder as a learning disability. So they may have any of those things. They're typically fairly close to grade level academically, but certainly their learning disability affects their ability to access their curriculum without there being appropriate strategies in place to help them with that. Typically kids who are at Summit View, I mentioned ADHD, so they may have some behavioral challenges, but typically that is not what's, quote, driving the bus. It's really their learning difficulties that need to be addressed when Summit View is the appropriate fit for them. Okay. We have 2 more schools to touch on, and then I will try to get to these questions that are coming in. So thank you for bearing with me. Our North Hills Prep School is in Van Nuys. North Hills Prep is also kindergarten through 12th grade. It does lead to a diploma. Oh, by the way, I didn't say that. How I describe the schools, you probably were able to determine this, but Summit View and STEM Cubed Academy also both lead to diplomas and the ability to go to community college or to university afterwards. And many of our schools from all of those programs do go to university after graduating. North Hills Prep is designed for kids who have more social and emotional challenges. They may have had some behavioral struggles in their schools before coming to us. And so it is an intensive and supportive therapeutic school that is really trying to help kids learn how to regulate and take advantage of the curriculum and develop skills that will allow them to do that and improve their ability to interact with their peers and with the adults around them. North Hills Prep also is a diploma granting school. Kids graduate from North Hills Prep and do very well in secondary school options. So that is the North Hills Prep School in Van Nuys. And then lastly, in Culver City, there is a school that we call Westview School. It's also a school for kids with social and emotional challenges. Many of our students at Westview have actually returned from residential treatment, some of them out of state, and we are a great place for them to return and help them reintegrate back into their families and their neighborhoods and the cultures in which they were in before leaving and going to residential, but not all. That's just a group of students that seem to do very well at Westview. Otherwise, it's also an intensive therapeutic support program with a lot of counseling services, educationally related intervention, intensive counseling services that help support these students do well and graduate from high school. So those are our schools, and that obviously is the thumbnail sketch of each of them. Again, the point here is for you to start understanding those differences so that you can do a deeper dive and learn more about our schools. So I think, go to the next slide, Aldo. I think we have about 7 minutes to answer questions. So I'm going to awkwardly scan over here and look at what folks have asked. There's one question that asks, what time does school start and end for young learners? That's a great question because I did not say this. One of the great things about young learners, at least I thought so, is that it is a full day preschool. So you don't find a lot of full day preschools, but because of the intense needs of students who require a program like that, we feel like that's best addressed in a full day program. Our schools are all 6 hours long. School days are 6 hours long, but each school may have a little bit different schedule, and most of that has to do with transportation. So we have a lot of vehicles coming in at any given time. It's hard for us to do it all at once. So I would say generally school is from around 9 to 3, but there'll be certain schools where it's 8:30 to 3 or thing. And so it's really dependent upon each school to be able to answer that question, but we will certainly talk about that as you get interested in our programs. Question was a lot about children with intellectual disabilities. What grades are they in? How many of these kids are at Sunrise? I think I probably answered that question when I talked about Bridgeport and Sunrise. Those programs do go kindergarten all the way through the age of 22. And we really are focusing on those skills of independent living from the very beginning till till they leave us, those developmentally appropriate independent living skills, while developing those academic skills at the same time that are going to benefit the student as well, to the extent that they are possible. Someone asked a question, will this video be posted? Yes. You missed the first 30 minutes. That's when I was at my best. Yeah, this is being recorded, and it will be available on our website I think you'll get an email that says when it's available. Just so you know, there's also a library of many other webcasts that we have done over the last 2 years or so that are available on that same website. So you'll see a variety of topics, and those aren't just me talking for an hour. We usually have guests, and they're pretty lively, and people have found them to be very helpful. So while you're there, peruse around and look at all of the content that we do have up there. Will school districts pay for tuition? And so that was Melissa, that was a big piece of probably the first 30 minutes. So if you go back and review that, you will see all of those questions treated pretty in depth. Okay. All right. Can you provide examples of what provisions in the IEP that will not allow a student to be acceptable? Where would a nonverbal child likely be placed? Neither question is really easy to answer just on the face of it, because it really does require our doing the evaluation that I've talked about, including reviewing paperwork, previous IEPs, previous evaluations, and then having that in-person contact with you and your child to determine what the appropriate placement is. Whether your child is nonverbal or not would not just by itself determine the placement. We really need to look at everything else that is going on to determine which would be best. What would not allow a student to be acceptable? Again, that has a lot to do with how your students' challenges and strengths fit with our programs. So again, other than the fact that many of our programs may want children with extremely aggressive behaviors to have some intervention prior to coming to us, there's really no other hard and fast disqualifying factor. It really, again, as I said, it really depends on our looking at the big picture through that evaluation process. And it's the reason that we don't accept or decline students just based upon your application. We just feel like that's not enough information. We need to get to know you better. So we will do that. And like I said, if we feel like we still don't know well enough, we will continue to have you maybe do a visit, or ask to talk to more people, or ask if there's other evaluations we can look at. We really do an in-depth job of making sure that we pick a good, appropriate fit for your child. Let's see if I can find anything else here. Okay, it looks like other than things that I have covered and folks can see, if you go back and watch the recording again, you'll definitely get those answers. I don't see anything else. I see a bunch of thank yous and awesomes, but really I want to thank you. I know an hour is valuable to everyone, so to spend that with us, we are very grateful for. I just wanted to tell a few things. Oh wait, here's a question. If parents want copies of the IEP, do they have to ask the school that referred them, or do they ask the NPS school? I think, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but you always have the ability to ask your school of attendance for your IEP. So I would definitely start there. If your child is referred to us by LAUSD in particular, they give us access as soon as you allow them to. They give us access in Welligent to your child's IEP, so that's nice and helpful. But if you're just trying to get it for yourself, you definitely have the right to go down and ask for that IEP. All right, so let's move on. Aldo, so I can, well, the one before that. Oh no, that's that one. That's fine. This is a way to get a hold of me. You can always get a hold of me. You can email me anytime. It's the best way to get a hold of me, honestly. I have my mobile device with my email. So emailing me at jbolton@thehelpgroup.org is a great way to get a hold of me, ask me questions. I'm happy to engage with families. Another way to get a hold of us, you see at the bottom of that slide there is our admissions email address. So admissions@thehelpgroup.org. I will tell you, Trish, who is in our admissions office, and Crystal, who's in our admissions office, their phone is ringing off the hook every day. So you may go to voicemail, but I really do feel like an initial contact via email is a great way to do it. So we will always call you back to schedule evaluations, so you'll have a chance to talk with us in person. But email really is a great way to get in touch with us. Before we go, just a couple things that I want to remind everyone. We do webcasts monthly. This is a different kind of them when I'm doing a review of our schools, but we typically are topical. October is Learning Disabilities Month nationally, and we are going to have a webcast on Wednesday, October 19th at 10 a.m. Everybody who is registered for this will get more information about that as it becomes available. And so we look forward to you joining us on that day. And I just like to let everybody know about a new program that we have begun offering. We have begun offering a counseling service. It's very different from anything we've ever done before because it's really a insurance-based program. So if you are looking, or any of your friends or anybody is looking to find a therapist to work with you or your family, we are doing it in person and virtually. So you can contact Lumina at 818-779-5100. And also there's the email address and the website that you can look for our services there. I am about to sign off, but I did see one question come in. It says, do you take students from Glendale Unified? Yes, we do. We have contracts, by the way. I should have said this from the beginning. We have contracts with approximately 80 to 100 local school districts or charter schools who act as school districts. So, and even if there's a district that we don't currently contract with, if you're interested in our programs, we will reach out to that school district to contract with them. So that usually is not a problem. Again, if you didn't have a chance to ask your question, feel free to email me at any time. And we thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to hearing from all of you soon. Thank you very much. Have a good day.